Hi, welcome to Module 11. Remember, we're doing a recorded lesson this week because of Halloween. So I won't see you on Monday, but I will see you Wednesday. So Wednesday we'll be doing some group work. I will not be lecturing on Wednesday, so you'll get the whole lesson done before Wednesday, and then you'll have this in Monday the 31st by 11:59. Remember that just like the last one, you will receive your participation points in the PLC by replying to this discussion board. And this discussion board has a few more parts to it. So you're going to want to watch the lecture, including opening the slides. And then from the lecture, you're going to follow this 3-2-1 strategy. And you can use this with your students as well. It can be the 3-2-1 strategy can happen with comprehension. You can do it with a lot of things. So here you're going to identify 3 important ideas from the lessons, 2 questions, and 1 concept you'd like to learn more. Then you're going to add to a presentation using a Google Doc template, which I'll go over within the lesson. So I would love it if you open the slides as long as in conjunction with the video. So have the video in one tab and then the slides in the other tab, because I have videos, but I'm not going to play the video in my screencast. I would just love it if you paused and then played the video yourself. So let's jump right in. So we're looking at direct vocabulary instruction this week. And it's pretty fun to teach vocabulary. So let's get into it. Tonight, whenever you're listening to this, we will be talking about the importance of vocabulary development in the reading process, talk about explicit teaching methods, and the different approaches you can use for your learners. So here's a quote. Benefits in the understanding text by applying letter sounds correspondence to printed material come about only if the target word is in the learner's oral vocabulary. So the National Reading Panel put out this quote, and I think it is very, very, very important to think about. The science of reading, we have been in depth in this course, but really it comes down to if they read a word and don't know what that word is, they're not reading anything. So that's really, really important to be thinking about how critical oral vocabulary is to all learners. So this is just like we talked about at the beginning of the video. We're going to use that 3-2-1 strategy within the discussion board. So in the discussion board, let me just go back. In the discussion board, you'll be following these prompts. It's exactly the same prompts as the discussion board. So you don't have to discuss the previous quote. You can if you'd like, but I didn't put that in there. Also, you will be identifying 3 important ideas from the lesson, 2 questions, and 1 concept. So this is all in here, and you will be doing that in the discussion board. If we were in class, we would be talking about it in class, but we are not. So you're going to put that in the discussion board for the week. So components of effective vocabulary instruction, just like you read in your text, there's the rich oral language experiences, thinking about teacher read-alouds, independent reading, and then there's that specific explicit instruction of words, teaching the words in context, and then learning word strategies. So then looking up in the dictionary, talking about what it means, and being aware of how it relates to the English language learners. So there's obviously there's oral language and print. So thinking how this all comes together, so listening, speaking, reading, and writing, much like much of the rest of reading that we've been talking about, all of these come into vocabulary. So Dale's level of word knowledge. This is really, really important to think about when you're teaching vocabulary. So you want to think, have my students, where in their history or where are they at with the vocabulary that I'm teaching? Is it a level 1 where the word has never been heard of and never been seen? Level 2, maybe you have seen the word but doesn't really know what it means. Level 3, vaguely knows what the means and kind of can put it together with the context. Or level 4, which is they know the word and can explain it. This is really important because this will tell you how much explicit instruction you'll need for that specific vocabulary word for your children. So specific word instruction is so important because specific word instruction is directly teaching that word. So you are specifically teaching what that word, how do you say it, what it means, giving context, giving depth and knowledge. So specific word instruction can be directly introduced through teacher read-alouds or through independently read text. But you would have to take a word and then you would teach it. So here is a teacher. So this video is, let's see, it's 3 minutes long. I'd like you to pause my video, jump into the slides and watch this 3-minute long video. And while you're watching the video, I want you to think, how are the teachers in this video teaching specific word instruction? And how is the approach explicit and direct? And then come on back. Okay, I think this was very clear after you watched the video how it was explicit and direct and how they were teaching it. These were really great examples of how to do this. So research on specific word instruction. Focus on the words that are contextualized in literature. So making sure that it's important to the text and may be used in different situations. Provide rich, in-depth knowledge of words. So really making sure children understand what the word means, just like in the video we watched, giving some examples, some context, and providing clear, student-friendly explanations. You want to expose your students as many times to that word. So vocab throughout the week, you could be using it over and over again in writing, in oral lessons, in reading. You want to make sure you're using it multiple times. And engage students to use in new contexts and create association among other words. So you're also hoping to hear the students use the words in their reading, oral language, and in their writing. So having multiple ways to use that word throughout the week and in your classroom. And then this kind of comes back to that idea of what words do I teach? Where are they at? We looked at one system that had the 4 to 1. So 4 is they know that word, the students can tell you. And then the 1 is they have no idea, it's brand new. So here's another 3-tier system that was created in 2013. So tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. So tier 1 are basic everyday words. So they likely know tier 1 words. Tier 2 have a general purpose. They might be a more mature language user, but are central to comprehension and the best choice for explicit instruction. Tier 2 words are words that they may not understand, such as predict, concentrate, despise. They may not know those words, or they may have heard them but maybe don't fully know them, but they are very critical to the comprehension of the text. If a child doesn't know these words, they're going to miss something or some part of the text that they're reading. So tier 2 words are great words that are great to have explicit instruction. Tier 3 words, you can also have them molecule, isosceles, metamorphosis. They're very specific vocab words, but they're very low frequency. So you're going to want to have the most tier 2, and then you can sprinkle in some tier 3. If you have children who are still learning English, Tier 1 may be very appropriate for them, or children who are behind. But when you're selecting words, you're really hitting those Tier 2 hard and spattering in Tier 3, and then knowing your readers, you may have to bring in a few Tier 1. So here's an example of Tier 2 vocabulary. While you watch this on your own, remember, jump to the slides, get into the video, watch it on your own. This one's a little bit longer. This one is 4 minutes. I want you to think, why were these words chosen? Remember, Tier 2. If you need to remember what Tier 2 is, go back to the slide. What methods did the teacher use to explicitly teach the vocabulary? So think about those two as you watch this 4-minute video. So here's a little to go, now that you watch the video and you watch how they very specifically taught that I do, we do, you do model, think of this is a little bit of practice for yourself. So I want you to look at this and find some Tier 2 vocabulary words. So Tier 2 words to teach. You can think about any of the Tier 1. So you can go to the Tier 1 word list here. Here's all these Tier 1 words, and they're in alphabetical order. So let's see. You might need to do marine, mammal, huge, creature, depending on your student's level. What about way? That might be one, but it might be very common. Your students may know that one. A Tier 1 word I would think would be animal. Resounding is a great Tier 2. Rumble, comparison, all Tier 2s. Impulse, Tier 2. Uninterrupted, Tier 2. You can see how we're looking at this. What are some very common words that are crucial to vocabulary? And those are the Tier 2 words you're going to want to pick, knowing that most of your students will know those Tier 1, and maybe some of those Tier 3 you could sprinkle in. So you want to have rich and robust instruction. What does that mean? It means using vocabulary contextualized in literature. There's a great example in your text on page 436 and 443 and 453. So you want to make sure that it's within the student's reading. You want to develop word meaning through student-friendly explanations, teacher-created context, so that could be like sentences. You could have different writing prompts, reading prompts, active engagement with those words, and develop in-depth knowledge of the words by using the words, exploring facets of the meaning in the words, and considering relationships among words, and extend words beyond the classroom. So beyond the classroom, like maybe they could walk out of the classroom using that word in some context. Maybe they could teach it to their family. But you want to use it in a way if you use every one of these concepts, that child would have so much practice and a deep understanding of whatever vocabulary word you picked. So I think this is the longest video. This one's 9 minutes. So again, you're going to jump out of this video and jump into the slides and watch it. These are examples of rich and robust vocabulary instruction. And how did the teacher use context, develop word meaning, and provide opportunities for deep learning? I absolutely love this video because we often think of young learners as maybe you don't want to teach them maybe that's too big of a word, or they may not understand it. But children are sponges and they'll take it in. So jump out of this video, pause me, go watch this 9-minute video. I absolutely love it. and then come back. So this touched in the video as well, but selecting words for English language learners, you want to make sure that you're thinking about English language learners. They're no different than a child who is not learning English. We all need to know vocabulary. It's just when you're taking in a new language, you're constantly learning vocabulary. So you're taking in so much information at once. You want to make sure that you're thinking about concreteness. So is the word abstract or concrete? Can it be shown or demonstrated? So like running, you could show. But what's something that's more abstract that maybe you couldn't show? Like something abstract would be maybe something that you can't exactly draw a picture of. Maybe a feeling would be more abstract. Those would be something that you would have to explain in a different way. So thinking about that, cognate. Does the English word have a Spanish cognate? Is it like a word in another language? Depth of meaning. Does the word have multiple meanings? There's so many words that have multiple meanings. You want to make sure that you're explaining that to your students. Utility. Is the meaning of the word key to the understanding the selection? Remember that those tier 2 words we're thinking about, okay, these are new words and they're so important to comprehension. Same thing here. What words does the student need to absolutely know to understand what they're reading? So there's a great word tier suggestion list on page 426 of your text. So when to directly introduce specific words. Before reading, you want to introduce target words. Any reading, really. Read alouds or independent reading. During reading, briefly explain target words as well. You can do it as they're reading, so this could be independently read text or read alouds. And after reading, so you could introduce and review. If a word will affect comprehension, introduce the meaning when it is met in the text. So that is a great strategy. You want to make sure that if you're reading and there's a word that if you don't know what that word means, you're not really comprehending the whole story, you need to introduce that. Word acquisition sequence. So thinking, okay, well, when do children learn what vocabulary? So students acquire vocabulary in a relatively well-defined sequence. That is ordered by vocabulary size rather than grade level. So thinking that their vocabulary is continuously growing in size rather than a grade level sequence of like, okay, this student will know all of these words and this student will, whatever grade you're in. Students, regardless of the grade, know certain words well, others only partially, and are unlikely to learn some. Word focus should be on words that are partially known because they are likely to be learned. So that's really important to remember. You don't want to go for those like $1,000,000 words all the time. The words that are kind of known are the ones that are going to stick the most. And there's a great list on page 423. So, thinking about how do I teach it, which is explicit teaching. How do I go about planning for it? And then, of course, we always have to talk about how to assess. An assessment will lead us to know when to intervene. So assessment is tied to the instruction. So like the target words that you're using will provide better information about the student's specific learning. Standardized tests also have a big picture of what that child's vocabulary is. And then you can use your knowledge within each lesson and standardized test to understand when intervention is needed. Early intervention is the most important. So when children come into kindergarten, when they're coming into first grade, really, 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 really intervening to make sure those vocabulary deficits are filled in. So they're at the most risk for failure to learning to read. Because what was that very first quote we had at the beginning? If they don't know what the word is and they're reading the word, they're not really reading. They are not understanding what that word means. Even if they can decode it, the comprehension won't be there. So, rich and robust instruction, meaning through the word, through many activities like storybook reading, and constantly using vocab will help with this. But you can also have intervention groups where you're directly reading, writing, and teaching those maybe gaps or deficiencies with vocabulary specific with students. So here's a great model lesson. And if you click here, you can see that you'll have to sign in to Kami just using your Google for ASU. And this one is a lesson, Frog and the Toad are friends. And you can see that the highlighted words are those tier 2 words. And you may want to teach those. So here's a little model lesson. So I want you to look through the story, and then you're going to think, this is kind of how a lesson may be taught. Read aloud a last button to the class. Stop and discuss words highlighted in the text. Open up the Jamboard. So this could be something you did in class. I'm not expecting you to do it for our class. And then living things, non-living things. So you have a toad and a chair and a button. So then you would put the picture of the frog on the living side, show the picture of the toad. So it's a frog and a toad. So they look kind of the same, but they're both living things. And as you go through this lesson, you'll see that the child will get frog and toad, and they'll know they're living things. They're moving objects around. They're seeing an actual picture of a frog and a toad, and they're comparing it to other pictures of the button and the chair. So these are all things that were in the story, and they're thinking living and non-living. So this is just a mini lesson that you could use with your students. So now that we've gotten through this, I want you to add to a presentation. So don't freak out. It's going to be very easy. So we're not going to have groups because we're all online today. What I want you to do is you're going to pick a strategy that you want to add to. Make sure you pick the right link. You're either in person, you're my in-person people, you're 4:30 to 5:45, or you're sync, you're my online people, you're my 7:30 to 8:45. So pick one. I'm going to say I'm in person. Click on it. So strategies. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 strategies. And you're going to say, I don't know what these strategies are. What am I going to say? Google it, right? Pick a strategy you want to add to. It's just a slide for each strategy. Pick one you want to add to. Now, if one is completely full and it's like everyone's added to it, move to the next one. So let's say you want to do, which one do I want to do? Word mapping. Go into Google, click on word mapping strategy vocab. There you go. That's what it is. And then you'll add just a little bit of information to word mapping. And so it says, explain the strategy, how to teach it, what students are required to do, and add a visual. Do that, and hopefully all of you will pick a new one and add something that someone else hasn't added. And then by the end of this lesson, you can save this strategy for vocab, and you have something to come back to. and we will look over this on Wednesday. So it's that simple. Just pick one you want to add it, and we will look at it on Wednesday. Nothing too crazy. So pick one of the slides, Google what that is, explain the strategy, add a visual. That's it. And then we'll have that little mini teach, and like I said, we'll go over it on Wednesday. So once you have watched the whole lecture, you are going to post by 11:59, the 31st. You're going to say 3 important ideas from the lesson, 2 questions, 1 concept, and you're going to add to the Google Doc on 1 vocabulary. Please respond to 2 peers. However, I'd love it if you could answer one of their questions. I'd love it if, you could answer it and say, hey, I found it in the text, or hey, I Googled that and here's what I came up with. So respond to 2 peers and answer all of these prompts, and you're good to go. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. I absolutely love teaching vocabulary. It's so